interoperable blockchain game makes sense when you think about it. But I also am really excited for the time when we don't really have to talk about Web3 or blockchain games, that the default or the de facto approach for studios is going to be players will own the key assets anyways, because it's just the right thing to do. It's a better business model. And so, eventually I think that's going to happen. As you consider the space and the future and what games are developing now, how long do you think it's going to be before we really do away with talking about, oh, this is a Web3 game? It just kind of becomes the technology that's there that's enabling most of the new games that are coming out.
When we hit a point, so we call it an IBG, and obviously the technology behind it is blockchain. The reason we don't call it an interoperable crypto game is crypto has this like bad connotation. There's people that think, crypto is a scam and all that kind of stuff. Blockchain doesn't necessarily have that. We've got banking systems that have been using blockchains and ledgers for 10, 15 years now. You've got real estate systems that use blockchains.
Yeah, healthcare.
It's just a superior way to have a ledger and tracking system. We're seeing it used with jewels now, so you can track where a diamond or a very expensive deposit or whatever. And it just makes it safer for the consumer to be able to have something on an online immutable chain where you can track the exact movements of where things have gone. So I don't think there's anything bad about blockchain, right? And so that's why we're happy to use IBG as the term. In terms of when I think it's going to get to a stage where we're not even using IBG and people are just like, this is just an interoperable blockchain game. I think it has to be when we have all genres a choice for gamers to go in and play a Fortnite style game, a tower defense style game, a dungeon crawler, battle royale, like all of these different, a racing game. Like once
dating simulator,
own your
right?
car in Need for Speed, you're not going back again, right? Like you think about that. You play those games. I played Need for Speed like all the way growing up. Then Need for Speed 5 comes out, Need for Speed 6 comes out, and you all of a sudden building up all your cars again, yet you've gone through all of these different races. It should just be a succession on Need for Speed 5 in 6 where you can build on that, and I shouldn't have to go and buy a new game that's going to cost me $100. I've already got the assets, right?
Yeah.
So I think once gamers actually see that blockchain gaming isn't just your really, really low quality indie games, it's going to change, right? And that verifiable ownership, that ability to sell and trade and own and earn, people don't regress. They don't go back, right? They're not going to say, all right, now sweet, we gave that a try and that was way better experience for the players, but for the developers, we didn't make as much money, so we're going to have to go back. That's not going to happen, right? There's too many teams like us that are building that have already accepted that our revenue model is completely different to what a traditional studios is, and it just so happens to be much, much, much better for the player and the investor. So both of those forces pushing against traditional gaming is going to change the scope of it. You just need to look, 5-10 years into the future.
Yeah. And for sure, I think the reason this is possible is 100% because from an economic model standpoint, you can have resellability and then take a small marketplace fee on the back end when your person that bought the asset the first time sells it to someone else, right? If you can't do that, you have to, as a content creator, like a game developer, you have to keep reselling new assets because you can't get effectively royalties on that initial creation. As soon as you have that marketplace structure in place, Now all of a sudden you don't need to force someone to pay another $70 for the next version of Madden or 2K or whatever. You can just sell it once, and then the resellability, as long as you provide value for the assets, right, through new games and content creation beyond, whether it's expansion packs or whatever, and that gives you the revenue model that you actually need in this space.
Yeah, so and 100%, a sustainable economy is what we're all about, and what we've been thinking about before even TGE, right? Like when we were first thinking, how do we keep our assets valuable over time? That's why we brought in sets, right? So you literally, after a certain amount of time, we're going to cut it off. You'll never ever be able to get those assets again. Still, you'll be able to use them across they don't become obsolete. You can use them across all the games for the rest of the time, but there will be other people who go, okay, now set 2's out. Imagine if I had that one earth character, or that one fire character, or water character, or nature character that maybe people thought was actually pretty lackluster in set 1. And so not many people caught it, right? So the idea of bringing in new characters every 12 months or so is the way that we keep them valuable. The fusing mechanism is the way that we keep them valuable. But this is all ancillary, right? This is all secondary to our primary focus, which is we're going to give you an extremely fun experience. If you go all the way through World of Warcraft, you get to level 60, you've grinded so many hours. Like, I've been there, right? I've been there with multiple characters.
And that's twice,
right?
yeah, 3 times, 4 times, yeah.
And if you get to the end of that, you're right now, the expectation is, oh, well, I just got 10,000 hours of addictive, immersive fun. That's better than the real world. It's my escapism. It's how I talk to my friends, and it's my community. It's all of those things that are very valuable to humans. It's why 3.5 billion of us do game, right? But if at the end of it, it was easy and encouraged for you to be able to go onto a marketplace and say, hey, I'm actually done with this warlock, I want to sell it to someone, that would be just an added bonus to the fact that you just had 10 years of fun playing this game. That's what we're about. So it's twofold. Not only have we thought, yes, there are going to be extractors in our economy who come in and try and get as much yield and as much money as possible. We stop that through adding new sets, adding fusing, making the alluvial super unique, and having different stats out there. So you're not just capturing a ramfire. There's 50,000 different ramfires out there, right? So how do you put a value on that? So yes, we have thought about all of the economic impacts of building a sustainable economy, but at the heart of it, it's about building a fun, immersive experience. That's the value that people really, really get out of playing our games.
Yeah. This was exactly the conversation I had with my arena partners in WoW. So I left as a guild officer and a WoW player earlier this year to really go full time into Web3 gaming, right? And it was a tough decision because I've been playing Classic for 2-3 years now. All the way through. This was not the first round that I played WoW either, and so making that decision to leave was difficult. And I had this discussion. Hey guys, I'm stopping. They're like, really? You spent all this time? And I said, yeah, because I think there's a reason that I shouldn't have to give it all up right now and just say totally sunk cost at this point, guys. Why should I not be able to sell my shaman to someone else and liquidate my assets? I mean, as it was, I sold everything that I could in game and then just sent the gold to all my friends. But there's nothing in it for me at that point. It's just really wanting to support my community and buddies that I played with for a long time. Yeah.
Unless you want to go onto black markets and now people talk about Web3, they're scams and it's dangerous and you can lose your money. think about what people did in World of Warcraft.
Bro,
And I'm not
I
talking
sold
about
gold back in 2007. Like, I mean, original, like OG, WoW times for
dude,
sure.
people like I say this, like I went out. It was when I first started working at Harvey Norman, which is a retailer that sells computers. I got into WoW and I bought a computer like the next day. I was that addicted. I was just like, oh my God, like I need to just build up this character.
Mm-hmm.
Back then, there were news stories, like people were literally meeting up in an internet cafe to make sure that you can't keep your kid, because people would go to eBay, they
Yeah,
would sell their
absolutely.
character, and then they
Super
would just
sketchy.
they would keep the secret key and they would just rug it from it,
Mm-hmm.
right? They would just rug it back, sell it again, rug it back.
Yeah.
eBay then caught onto it and started building in protection mechanisms. But it got to a point where people were going to an internet cafe, so they knew, okay, you're a real person. I'm watching you click that button, and here's $500 cash for that character, and I've got the keys. I know that I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
That's insanity, right? But you're not going to stop human nature from doing things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like there's no point in stifling people and players like that. And that's why I think if there were good games that were playable, and I mean not just alphas and betas and stuff, I mean really, really good games that gave you that ownership that existed today, it would already have happened. Players wouldn't be going back. I wouldn't be having to sit here talking about it. I would be competing with Web3 games that have already brought over hundreds of millions of players, because they're not going to regress and go back and say, actually, you know what, you're right. Let's start giving all our money back to the developer. It's the game has changed, and this is the future. And once we see multiple genres and multiple titles come out from really, really smart developers that have researched their tokenomics, so they're sustainable, they've got a good game design, they've got great graphics and an in-depth team, it's game over.